Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever's true, whatever time it is when you're tuning in on this. And welcome to this session about digitally speaking, tools to improve online communication. Now, I think you've already experienced this before. You know that these people have sponsored this. It's been an incredible conference. And I think the people who put this on have to be exhausted 24/7 for 5 days, but also notice the sponsors, and I appreciate all that they've done. And do me a favor. You've done this before. That's the fun of being on the last day. People have probably already been here. I'd love you to use that little sun icon and move it to wherever you are. Got someone on the East Coast, got someone in Dallas, we've got someone from Canada. And I'm from Denver, Colorado. I can't get mine to stay. And I think we'll have other people join us. But it's nice to know you're all sort of in the same day at least. Don't have anybody on a different day from the Far East this time. So welcome. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Oops, let me go back here. That's who I am, and that's my website, pvlegs.com, and I'll explain more about that later. And there's my email address, so you can email me if there's something that I say that you have interest in, let me know. But here's what's true. I'm passionate about speaking skills. I don't think we've paid enough attention to teaching our students how to speak well, and I think it shows up. So I've done a lot of work with teachers around North America, showing them how to teach kids to speak well. And someone said at some point, is there a book on this? And when I checked, there were no books. There were no books to teach teachers how to teach students to speak well. So I ended up writing one. That's Well Spoken. That's a paperback that you can buy. And then just last week, my second book, Digitally Speaking, came out. Digitally Speaking is not a book as such. It sits on the cloud. If you can get to the internet, you can get to that book. When you buy it, the book sits on the cloud. It has embedded tutorials about how to use the sites and tools that I mentioned. It has examples of teachers working with kids. It has all kinds of interactive things to it. So it's not a book in the traditional sense. But what motivated me to write that book was that so many teachers now are using tools to communicate digitally, podcasts, webinars, and such. And certainly that's true in the global education community. We have all these different tools that we're using to communicate with, but the truth so far has been that we haven't used those tools well. Let me explain what I mean. In the short term, this is just today, just presentations today. Someone talks about an international project, someone is doing I-Earn projects, someone has student-created public service projects, someone is talking about fostering global collaboration with international projects. All of these are going to be based on oral communication. The way we generate interest in the project, the way we communicate with each other, it's all going to be based on our oral communication. And in a world that is so full of options, once you go online, you have all kinds of things competing for your interest. In a world that's so full of options, you need to be able to orally communicate well if you want to be successful with any of these projects. Oral communication is the way we do business. So in the short term, it will help our students as we're connecting globally. It will help us promote our projects. It will help us interact with other classrooms and other places. Oral communication is the way this will be done. In the long term, I would point out to you that there's a National Association of Colleges and Employers. This is in America. And what they do is they survey employers and they say, what skills are you looking for? What's the number one skill employers are looking for? The number one skill, year after year after year, and it was true again in 2013, verbal communication. This is the long term. Oral communication counts because employers know that it's not what you know that counts, it's whether you can communicate what you know. And that's true in any language. Yes, the study was done in America, but I'm guessing that verbal communication is going to be important no matter what career you have and no matter where on the planet you have it. In an interconnected world, your communication skills will be on display. So that's where I come from with this. Now, what I want to share with you today are some keys to effective oral communication, all oral communication, not just digital. I'll show you some ways we have to modify to be more effective with our digital presentations, and then I'll if we have time, give you some tools and sites that you can use to practice and showcase your projects. We've got this new realm of speaking, digital speaking, webinars, like this one, like the one I did for Houghton Mifflin a couple of weeks ago. You know about Skype. I talked to my son in the Netherlands, face-to-face. People are using this to connect classroom to classroom. It's an incredible tool. Our students are using this, but we're not using it well at this point. Devices have FaceTime so that anything you say is now being seen. Your communication skills are showcased like they never were before. Any camera now is a video camera. Kids are making video and posting them. It's staggering the percentage of kids who have posted videos. And of course, that's what we do to promote our projects, and we have to make these better. And of course, smartphones. This is how the world does business, and every smartphone now has the option to get an app that will record voices. I have a free app that's a voice memo recorder. I record my voice. I can send it to anybody, anywhere. And of course, every smartphone now has a camera and a video camera as well. So it's very easy now to communicate digitally, and we're using these tools to connect globally, and the key is to use them well. So I wanted to give a couple of examples. They won't play through here, so let me do this. Let me play a couple of examples that will show you what I think is the problem. The first is from a class that wants to have composting, and they want to encourage composting to solve the global problem of trash. So they've created a video, and here's a recording from that video.
Good compost bins allow liquid to drain easily. Many compost bins also offer some covers. Water that trickles through the compost can wash away useful nutrients and will also suck away heat. Many compost bins are designed to maximize airflow and circulation. This is because oxygen keeps away the stinky anaerobic microbes that can otherwise create odors. Keeping a compost well mixed and aerated prevents those anaerobic bacteria from getting established. Temperature is another key to the breakdown of compost. Helpful microbes work best at elevated temperatures, so it's important to keep their workplace warm. The fastest decomposition occurs between 140 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So that the wind does not blow off.
Now you listened to 50 seconds, but I'm guessing that it seemed quite a bit longer. The problem is she's got a great project, and the class has a great project, and I think the world ought to join forces with them to learn more about composting. But because of the presentation, who's going to get enthused about it? Who's going to be excited to join this project? In fact, given the amount of options that I have online, who's even going to continue listening past 50 seconds? I'm on to the next site. I'm going to go to the next place, entertain the next options. Let me show you one more. I think this is pretty common as well.
Here's what we talked about. Riding bikes is popular in Lakewood. Wearing helmets is not popular. It is dangerous to not wear a helmet when riding a bike. We talked to doctors and bike pros who told us that helmets can save lives and still look cool. Helmets seem cheap in comparison to starting your life over after a serious temperature. Now it's up to you.
So here's a common pattern that we get. And I think if I talk like this, you'd get pretty tired. I don't think everybody would stay for the entire webinar if I continued to use that pattern. I think it's quite annoying, even though it's a great project. This is the kind of thing that will hurt us as we're trying to communicate. Someone has to teach the child to speak well before we hit the record button. And I know that seems harsh, because it's okay, he's making fun of some young girl, and it's a great project. I think that they should encourage bike safety, and I think kids should wear helmets when they ride their bikes. But what I'm worried about is the message is getting lost. And so many of us have great projects that aren't having the success we want because we're not successful teaching the communication needed to sell the project. So I apologize for being rude to those kids, but I think you see the issue. So here's the truth. Students don't speak well. And I blame technology because they're texting, they're tweeting, they're on Facebook, and this is not time that we're doing conversing and learning skills of communication. But I also blame us. We don't specifically teach speaking. I've been all over North America and Mexico, and I haven't found teachers who teach speaking. We teach reading, we teach writing, we teach math. We don't have specific lessons on how to teach speaking. We have assignments where they speak, but we don't teach them how to do it well. So it has to start there. We've got all these new tools that showcase speaking. Your skills are on display. We have to improve the way students speak. Let me point out that what I'm talking about today are communication tools. All of these things are communication tools. Yes, they're connectivity tools. Yes, they have incredible wow factor, and we can say, wow, look at this. Wow, I can hook up with someone over here. Wow. But it's not about the wow, it's the communication tool. And we have to teach effective communication first. And showing how the tool works is not the same as teaching how to use it well. Just showing a child, click here to record, click here to go onto Skype, click here to connect, that's not the key. The key isn't how to use it well, or rather how to use the tool, it's how to use it well. So let me explain what I think is important. These are the skills we need before we use the tool. And this will be true for all oral communication. What I'm saying will apply whether it's one-on-one communication, small group, large group. This is what it takes to be an effective speaker. And we'll show how we modify it for the digital world because it's the same skills. It's what you have to do in order to be an effective speaker in any language, in any place. So, here's the first revelation, that there are two distinct parts to all speaking. And this needs to be clear in your mind and I think in the minds of our students. First, you build the presentation. This refers to everything you do before you say a word. Everything you do before you hit the record button. That's a very different skill than performing the presentation, which is what you do as you are speaking. And these are radically different skills. And it's true, again, one-on-one, small group, large group, digital, in-person. You'll have students who are very good at building a presentation, but not so good at performing. You have students who are natural performers but have nothing of value to say, much the same way we have writers who are very good with punctuation and spelling and capitalization but not so good at content. We have other kids who are very good at content but can't spell anything at all. So it's really important for students to understand that there are these two distinct parts, and I want you to focus on what you do before you say a word, and then we'll worry about what you do as you are speaking. This is what it takes before you say a word. This is what you have to do to build a presentation, and it's true, again, for any presentation. You have to consider these things. Audience, who are they? What do they know? What do they need to know? What do they want to know? And by the way, even adults miss this, right? I'm sure you've been in some place where some staff developer came in and was just saying things at you, and you thought, I don't care. Who's the audience? What are they? We don't spend enough time with that. And often even in our classrooms, a child will do a presentation that just goes over the heads of everybody in the class. They aren't interested because they didn't think who the audience was, what they were interested in, what they needed to know. Any presentation starts there. Then, of course, I'm worried about content. Do you have important and interesting information? That has to be compelling. It's not the case that everything the kids think is important is important. We'll throw out ridiculous dates. The project started April 5th. 2011. April 5th, could it have been May 12th? Whatever, I don't know. That's not important. But that's content. We have to worry about that as we build it. We have to organize it. You probably know the basic speech plan. This might be an international cliche. Tell them what you're going to say it, tell them what you said. Today I'll give you 3 reasons why we need to compost. I'll explain why composting will change your life today, and I'll explain what will happen if we don't compost. Here are my 3 reasons, yada, yada, blah, 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 blah. Here's how composting works. You say it, and then you sum it up. Now you know the reasons, how it affects us, that sort of thing. So the basic speech plan, beginning, middle, end. That's important. And I worry about visual aids. As we talk to kids and present our information, are the visual aids relevant? Are they accessible? That is, does everybody, A, understand them, and B, can they see them? As we're designing for small devices, I'll talk more about that later. And this is something that adults have a problem with. Are the visual aids important? If you put up bullet points with every word, then I don't need you. Sit down, be quiet, I can read faster than you can talk. If you put something up there, it better be important. And we have to work to make sure they're designed, not decorated. Kids will find all kinds of ways to decorate with bubble letters or fancy fonts or backgrounds. That's not what this is about. We're about creating a presentation. And finally, I'm concerned about appearance. Do you look the way you should look? And this seems straightforward, but sometimes kids miss this. I was working with a school. They were in Iowa. They were Skyping their representative, their senator rather, in Washington, D.C. The United States Senate is a fairly formal place. These kids needed to change their appearance before they addressed their senator, but they didn't. That's a mistake. So before we say a word, we need to think about the audience. We need to have some important content. We need to organize it well. We need to have visual aids, and we need to pay attention to our appearance. And that's true for all communication. Having said that, what's true is that the performance matters. If you cannot perform, and it's commonly called delivery, but that's too easy. If you cannot perform, there's a problem. What you have built will be wasted. And that's what I see happening with the digital projects that people are using. I see so many great projects that have been so well built and so well designed, but the performance is hurting the project. Now, decades ago, I put this up, and one of my students said, PV legs. Why yes, PV legs. Well, that took on a life of its own. That's why my website is pvlegs.com. And I had students come back decades later and say, as I was preparing for a presentation for my senior seminar in college, I was thinking about PV legs. I've had adults come to me and say they're thinking about PV legs before they do presentations, wedding toasts, back to school night, whatever. So it's taken on a life of its own, and I'm happy about it. But this is what it really takes to deliver a speech, and there are so many descriptors out there. Intonation, elocution, articulation, vocal modulation, intonation. It boils down to this. Let me explain. Poise. Do you appear calm and confident? And I say appear because I know we aren't. People are actually sort of nervous. But you have to appear calm and confident, and that means we have to teach kids to avoid all the behaviors that they do. Shuffling, rocking, fidgeting, twirling the string of their hoodie, brushing the hair out of their eyes. This is international. Kids, when they speak, do unusual things. And we have to work with them to stop those things, because I will become annoyed. I'll accept shaky hands, I'll accept a nervous voice, because I get that speaking is hard. But if you have some annoying habit, that will become a distractor, and now your message gets lost. So the performance starts with poise. Then I worry about voice. And this encompasses a lot of different things. A lot of teachers use unfriendly words like elocution, which I think is what they do to prisoners in Texas, articulation, enunciation, voice. Is every word heard? That's what I'm interested here. Any competent speaker will have every word heard. And that may mean just right for the space. How big is the space? Are you using the microphone well? It certainly means no mumbling or blurring, because kids will commonly say, I'm going to talk about, excuse me? I'm going to talk about, yes, thank you, that's important. So I'm worried about voice. Life, I call it life. Inflection has been used, that's not a friendly word. Life, is there life in your voice? This is the #1 growth area for all speakers, adults and students. I need to hear feeling and emotion. If you're excited about this project and you want me to get excited about it, then I need to hear that excitement. If you think composting is going to save our planet and stop a global crisis with garbage, I need to hear more than I heard in that other talk, right? And if you think wearing a bike helmet is crucial, I want to hear that. I want to know exactly how crucial it is and how you feel about it. It's the biggest growth area for all speakers. I'm concerned about eye contact, and this is something that every teacher I've ever worked with in any school district anywhere has had on their rubric, on the score sheet. We know that eye contact matters. It's true. Any speech is a conversation magnified. That's what it is. Any speech is a conversation magnified. If I was conversing with you, I would be looking at you. So the same is true with any presentation. I have to look at you. And we all got that one. I think that's universally known. Gestures matter. And I talk about these things, and as I say them, I think a lot of teachers are saying, well, yeah, I know gestures matter, but have you taught them? Have you taught students about gestures? Have you ever said, on Tuesday, we're going to learn about emphatic hand gestures? And I'll give you some phrases that call for gestures, like, yes, we won, or no, 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 stop that. Because these call for emphatic hand gestures. And then on Tuesday, we'll have a lesson on descriptive hand gestures. Have you done this? On Tuesday, you give some phrases that call for descriptive hand gestures. Well, the dog was only about this high, but his mouth was this big. And I had scratches all the way up and down my arm after he bit me. That calls for some descriptive hand gestures. Have we had lessons on these things? Probably not, but these are crucial to give kids the skills they need to be effective in person and in the digital world. Body gestures matter. How you hold your body, whether you lean in or lean back. Facial gestures certainly matter. My wife teaches 4th grade. She reads a book called Matthew's Meadow, and as she reads the book, at some point, Matthew takes a milkweed pod and blows the seeds into the sky. As she does that, over 2/3 of the class is pursing their lips and making the motion as if they too are blowing the seeds. Because facial gestures matter. We will mimic someone else's face. But have you taught lessons on these things? Probably not. And it's important to develop speaking skills. And finally, speed matters. Commonly we worry that kids are too fast. And that is a worry. But it's more than being too fast. Have you taught them how to use fast and slow? Because speeding up and slowing down for effect matters. This is a true story. I played baseball. There's actually a Little League baseball for old guys. And we love playing baseball. We grew up in America. That's our pastime. We want to play baseball, so it's Little League for old guys. And I was on second base. My teammate was hitting. He hit a ball to left field. I was rounding third. The coach was sending me home. The catcher was blocking the plate. The throw came in from the outfield. Bam! There was a collision. 6 weeks later, when I got off of crutches, see, that story calls for fast and slow. And if you tell kids to speak slowly, there's a lot less power to that story. I was on second base. My teammate, you need fast and slow. And part of our presentations will need that as well. And certainly pauses would be really important to teach kids about. If you want me to have some belief in the power of your project, you can pause and let me know. There are 700 million people who don't have enough food to eat daily on our planet. 700 million. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. We need to teach kids about using pauses for effect. So this is what's true. If you teach kids PV legs, they will be able to understand what it takes to be a great speaker. That doesn't mean they've mastered it, but it does mean they have the concept. They know what to look for. And they know, oh, I have this thing with poise, I haven't cured it yet. Or I need to add more life to my voice. It's not there yet, but at least they have the structure of what to do. And I challenge you to watch any great speaker anywhere and tell me what they do different than this. They are poised. They have a voice such that you can hear every word. They have some life in their voice to make them interesting to listen to. They make eye contact. They use gestures well, and they use speed well. That's it. Those are the skills of effective speaking. Whether one-on-one, small group, in person, large group, digitally, that's what it takes to be a great speaker. And we have to make these skills clear in the minds of our kids. So, I set down the basic framework for what it takes to be a great speaker. We spend a lot of time with little mini lessons so we can develop these skills. Now we're ready to think about promoting our project. And I'm going to create some digital presentation. There are a couple of tricks. There are some things we need to do to modify for the digital presentation. And this comes from Digitally Speaking, the book that I told you about that's on the cloud. I still have to worry about building a speech. That doesn't change. In the digital world, they're still building, they're still performing. But there are a couple of interesting considerations when we're building for the digital world. Audience is a much more interesting question. Who's the audience? What do they like? What do they know? Well, it's quite different if I'm talking about presenting to my classroom. Who's the audience in the world? What's my target market? Who are they? What do they know? If I'm Skyping a class in Guadalajara and I'm talking about To Kill a Mockingbird because we're sharing novels with each other, and it talks about Halloween, do you know Halloween? Maybe I should talk about Dia de los Muertos to try and get some kind of connection with you. What's life like where you are so that I can be more effective presenting this to you? So the audience question is much more interesting when we talk about the digital world. We can't prepare a presentation that we like. We have to think about what would be effective to the audience in Russia, to the audience in Guatemala, to the audience in Taiwan. It's a much more interesting question. We also have to think about how the audience will be viewing the presentation. Is this going to be on a smartphone? Is this going to be on an 8-inch tablet, a 13-inch netbook? Is someone going to project it on a screen somewhere? So the audience question is something that demands a lot of attention before we ever hit the record button. And I'm not sure we do a good enough job making sure that our audience is well thought of and we design for them. I'm also worried in the digital world about organization. Yes, I want a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I need something more than just a beginning, middle, and end. Again, think about the digital world. In this webinar, for instance, some of you have already wandered off, maybe gotten coffee, maybe go play with the cat, maybe texting on your phone. In the digital world, it's very difficult to pay total attention. I mean, that's difficult to do in person. In the digital world, it's much more difficult. Therefore, we have to be especially careful to come up with some great grabber opening, something that will really get the audience's attention and sustain it. I'll turn into your presentation for a couple of minutes out of curiosity. But if you say, hi, my name is Jamal and I want to talk about composting, yeah, I'm not that interested. I need a more powerful opening than that. I need something that will grab my attention. We have an island of trash the size of the state of Texas in the middle of the Pacific. It's floating in the middle of the Pacific. It's an island of trash the size of the state of Texas. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's a problem. And that's the problem I want to address today. Oh, well, I'm probably a little more interested in your presentation now. And I also talked about signposts. I want signposts. These are specific verbal markers. I want signposts in a presentation telling me exactly where I am and where I'm going. Because people wander off. You went away for a minute and you came back. Where are we now? Well, now that I've told you about clean water projects, let me explain what you can do to contribute to our clean water project. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I know exactly where I am. I went away for a minute. It's really crucial that we have these signposts in the digital world so that the listener can come and go and understand what's happening. And visual aids changes somewhat. It's so easy to add music now to our presentations. But should you? And what kind of music? So many people use GarageBand, which is on Macintosh computers, Apple computers. And GarageBand has these musical loops you just drag over, and then this loop repeats over and over and over again as you're talking. Does it contribute? Does it add to the mood? Does it do anything to help your presentation? This is a consideration we need to spend more time with. And images. Not all images are equal. What image most importantly conveys what you want to convey? What picture is really well designed so that I understand the problem, so that I really get involved with what has to happen? And your appearance matters. Certainly your appearance, like I talked about the class that was Skyping the U.S. Senator, they need to look a little sharper than they looked. But it's not only about how you look. In the digital world, how does the set look? This is a student who made a great podcast. She was a very passionate speaker, but perhaps she should have paid attention to the vacuum cleaner in the background, the newspapers on the hearth, little brother watching TV in the room behind her. These things matter in the digital world. And as you explore, you'll notice that lots of people who are promoting their projects and connecting globally haven't spent a lot of attention worried about what's behind them. because everything is visible now. So this is what it takes to build. These are all building things we have to think about, what you do before you hit the record button in a digital presentation. There are a couple of considerations as well for the performance digitally, things we have to pay extra attention to. Remember, none of these things go away. It's not that this is a totally different kind of speech and we can forget about something. No, it's all there. Of course, I'm not worried about gestures, perhaps, if it's an audio podcast, but we tend to make videos. But I'm worried about this. I am particularly worried about life. Life is crucial, and here's what's true. In the digital world, the life in your voice is much more diminished than it is in person. What is okay in person is flat in the digital world. When you're hearing something on a little tiny speaker from a little tiny device, the excitement and emotion goes away unless you are super excited. And I had this explained to me decades ago when I had a radio show, and I had a radio DJ on my show. They wanted the young person's view of what's happening in the world today, and I was supposed to interview people. And I brought in a radio DJ because we listen to DJs. He was over the top. Jiving and striving, moving and grooving, uptight and out of sight. Hey, how you doing? I thought, hey, settle down. Just settle down, be cool. Then I heard the recorded presentation when it was played on the radio. He sounded normal, I sounded dull. It is the biggest growth area for us in our digital presentations. We have to be over the top. And the trick is that part of this is cultural. I mean, I'm in America, and we are known for being brash and loud-mouthed people. And so for me to say to students here, you have to have more life. Yeah, I can do that. I'm a loudmouth anyhow. And that's not true of every culture. But the trick is, and this comes from a book that I think people ought to read, Other People's Children. It's maybe 10 years old, Other People's Children. It talks about what's called the culture of control. What is the standard that you have to reach? And in the digital world, if we want to compete globally, there's a certain level that we have to perform at. And what works in a particular culture may not be sufficient to work in the global world. We may have to say, I understand this is how you are normally, sweetheart, but right now we got to sell our project. We want to get people enthused. We want to connect with other classes. And in order to do that, we have to really make it exciting for them. And we have to make it emotional for them. And we have to make clear that we care about it. That's crucial. And it's something that will change that composting thing you heard before into something that would make me think, yeah, I do want to do something about this. That is a crime. We have to do better. I will join you in supporting Global Composting Initiative. So life is a huge issue. And in the digital world, camera contact becomes an issue. Eye contact turns into camera contact. Here's what I'm talking about. Have you seen this? This is the common way we Skype. This is the common way we video confer with people. Because what? You're looking at your screen. You want to see yourself. And we have to break kids of this habit. I will submit to you that it is much more engaging to talk to this person than this one. And it's a simple thing, but it's something we have to work with kids on so they break the habit of staring at the computer and look where that camera is instead. So I hope that this seems obvious, but what I also hope is that it motivates you to change the way you teach speaking. Well, and in most cases, to start teaching speaking, because this is something we haven't done. Now, let me spend a couple of minutes, and I won't do a lot with this, but I do want to show you some presentation tools. I don't know if you're familiar with these. You probably are. I mean, we're connected educators. That's why we're here. We're sort of in the early innovation vanguard of this sort of thing. But I do want to show you a couple of things that can be used to practice and a couple of ways you can present information that may be more fun than something you're currently using. Do you know about vocaroocom? Let me give you a minute to play with vocaroo vocaroo.com because it is so simple and it is such a great way to practice. If you can get to the internet, you can get to vocaroo.com. Let's see if I've got this right. This is all part of the tutorial that they give you. I think spelling it right would be important. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to see how difficult this is to work. Whoops, as I say, spelling it would be important. I don't know, Barb, what have I done wrong here?
Let me check here. Did you type it in? Let's see,
We've gotten there now?
Yeah.
People looking at the Vocaroo page.
Did that work? I'm sorry, I got a call from another conference there. Did that work okay?
I'm looking at the Vocaroo page. Are you all in the Vocaroo page? Can you raise your hand or give me a little yes or something in the chat box? There we go.
Okay.
So let me give you a couple of minutes to play with it. You can see how difficult it is. Any child can understand what it takes to record. You'll see what it takes to finish recording. And what I like is that at the end you have some options. You can email the recording. You can embed it on a web page or something. It is a great way for kids to practice over and over and over and listen to themselves. If they don't have devices on their own, if you have one computer, one netbook in your school and can get to the internet, you can let kids work with this. So let me give you a couple of minutes to play with it. Go ahead, record something. Play it back if you like it. Email it to a friend. That'll surprise them. And if you can make a comment in the chat box, let me know how it's working for you. That would be swell. Gives me a chance to scan the chat box and see what...
Eric, are you able to embed the Vocaroo on a wiki?
Yes, you can. When you finish the recording, there's a little button below that says, well, let me see here. Let me allow it. If you like the recording, you have some options. And you can say, click here to save. And when you click on that, you get a link, which is just the URL code, the HTTP. Next to that is a button that will say embed. That will give you the HTML that you can put on a wiki page, that you can put on a web page or whatever, that you get that embed code. Typically, I prefer this for practicing so that kids are ready and so that they can listen to themselves before we hit the recording. But if you really got a great recording and wanted to use that, you could. Does that help if we had some fun playing with this? Well, then I'm going to bring you back and show you a couple of other things just quickly, and then I want to take some questions. Give you a chance to respond. Looks like some people have put some good... Oh, Lisa Delpit, someone's got that link up there. So I am scanning the chat that's been supervised here, so that's good. Let me bring you back from Vocaroo, and I bet you can think of some way to use it. If you can get online, you can get there. So I'll show you a couple of other sites, and I'll leave it up to you to explore them on your own. One of the things that I notice is that people are sort of limited in what they think they can do. We're all using video cameras or something, but there are other ways to present information. And there are really fun ways that little kids can present information. This is a site that I think you might enjoy called littlebirdtales.com. I think the site was designed for new parents. You've got that new baby and you want to show the baby off and record everything the baby says and send it off to grandma and grandpa and put it on the line. But it's now used, I think, for teachers to create engaging slideshows with audio added to it. I put up the slideshows of my presentation, and the kids narrate the slides. It's highly engaging if the narration is good, but how wonderful to see your drawings and your photos and hear your voice describing it. It's a really engaging way for young kids to present. And when you look at the site, which you can do when we're done today, you'll see that this is really designed, I think, for younger kids. I think it's not something that you'll use with upper-level kids. For them, I would expect that you would use this, impressor.com. This is a slideshow creation place as well. I'm creating an online slideshow. What I love about Impressor is that you can record on the slide. I'm all about giving kids voice. This is a life skill. I want them to have voice. I want to sell my global project, and I want to connect with other classes, yes, but I also want them to be impressive long term. And I'm in favor of any site where you can narrate the slide. And it's the same thing. I can upload images. I can add text to the slides. I can also, if I choose, I can also add voice, and that's what I think we should do. And I'll show you one more, and I hope that you know about it. By the way, these sites are free. Vocaro, there's no sign up, as you noticed. You just right there at the record page. But at Impressor and Little Bird Tales, they're free to sign up, free to use. Little Bird Tales, by the way, has a class option. You can sign up your school and sign up your class, and that's also free. It's not necessary, but it's something you can do. I'll show you one more. Are you familiar with Glogster? Glogster is an online poster. It's an online interactive poster. A great way to present information. Take a look at the poster that we created, and you can see the problem. You can look at videos of us working. You can listen to our voices as we're working. It's a great way to present information. This is an example of a poster that was created by some fourth graders. They got a grant to learn economics, and they wanted to encourage other people to have economics through pet ownership. That was their idea, to encourage folks to do this. How do you present the information? They presented it this way. You can see that they have their financial statement up there, income and expenses. They have a picture of a pretzel because their class pet is a snake, a ball python. They put up a video of their ball python, and they put up recordings of them. Now, the video of the ball python is something that the average person may not want to watch, because here's how a ball python eats. It strangles a mouse to death and then swallows it whole. The kids thought that as the mouse was being strangled, it was dancing, and so they put up a crazy dance track to it. But I'll let you go to that address when we're done so you can see it. Now, I see that someone's made a comment about a problem with it. I haven't experienced a problem with Glogster. I found it's been pretty good, and I've used it with students of all ages in classrooms all over the place. And so check that out. There are inappropriate things on the other Glogster sites, so you want to stay with edu.glogster.com. And this, by the way, will have a fee. There's a free account when you go to Glogster. There's also an account where you can control what your kids are doing. That costs a little money. I think it's $30 a year. But the free account, you can still have control of 10 different student posters. In any event, I think this is something that we have to think about using. It's just another way to present information, and I would encourage you to explore these on your own, because we'll get tired of looking at the same thing every time. If I just see a classroom video of kids talking about their project, and especially if they're not talking well, I'm not going to be excited about your project. If you really want me to connect, let's do a little bit more. So, let's do this. Let me refresh. All oral communication involves building a speech, whether it's in person, one-on-one, large group, or digitally. We have to think about the audience, put up engaging content, organize it well, pay attention to the visual aids, and pay attention to the appearance. And we absolutely have to pay attention to the performance. Let me get back a slide. This is what it takes to perform. We have to pay attention to poise, voice, life, eye contact, gestures, and speed. And these are skills we have to give to students. They don't intuit these things. They don't get it on their own. They don't get it by doing it over and over and over and over. We have to teach it. You don't teach a child writing by saying, sit down and write for 10 minutes. And tomorrow we'll do it again. You give them lessons. You help them with sentence structure and say, here's a lesson on fragments. Here's a lesson on punctuation. Here's a lesson on compound sentences. Here's a lesson on grammar. Here's a lesson on conjugation of verbs. This is what we do with other things. We don't do it with speaking, and we need to. We need to specifically teach speaking, and if you're going to have any impact connecting with other people, if you're going to have any success with global communication, you have to worry about developing the speaking skills of children. So, having said all that, let me see. Are there some questions that I have? And Barb is going to tell you how to turn on a microphone so that you can talk back to me and I can answer questions.
Hi everybody. If you'll see right below the picture of me that says Barb Morganfield moderator, I think you're going to see that, or you'll see it somewhere under participants. There's a smiley face, and then there's a torso with a clock, and there's a hand. If you would like to ask a question, just hit the hand. It will go up number by number. I'm going to activate the microphone, and then you just press talk, which is below the audio video picture above, and just press that, and that's where you can talk. So you can just
let me answer Peggy's question, who wrote it. Peggy, here's what I do. I am a big believer in mini speeches. I just have kids give a lot of mini speeches, and so for Poise, what I'll do is I'll say, I need some volunteers. Can someone come up and tell me what your favorite activity is? And I've done this with kids of all ages. You know, from second grade through college. Tell me what your favorite activity is. Somebody will say, you know, will get up and say, well, my favorite activity is soccer. I'm just mad about soccer. I really love it. As they're doing it, the odds are overwhelming that something is going on because we're emerging speakers. And so I've had kids who are wiggling their feet. When the child is done, I'll say, what did you notice? And they'll say, well, Jack was really wiggling his foot. He just kept swinging his leg back and forth, which is something I see commonly. All right, let me take another speaker. What will that second speaker not do? They're not going to swing their leg back and forth because they get the concept right away of poise. The second speaker may be tugging at their sleeves. And they spend 2 minutes talking about why they love shopping, and while they're talking, they're tugging at their sleeve and tugging at their sleeve, and I'll say, what happens? What did you notice? And of course they'll say they're tugging at their sleeves. What will the next speaker not do? The next speaker is going to not swing a leg and not tug at their sleeves. We got that, we got that. Of course, at some point they may just be frozen. And then we have to talk about that doesn't look calm and confident either. But kids understand right away, and of course you have to create an atmosphere where we can play. An atmosphere where we can really laugh at each other, because I will say, did you notice you were tugging your sleeve, sweetheart? I mean, that was just, you have to, okay. We have to create that atmosphere, and I'm sure you do that with your classes. But I'm really big on this. Now, of course, the next time she speaks, will she tug at her sleeves? A little. But she understands when she does it what's going on. She'll tug at it and go, and you'll see that smile of recognition. Oops, I'm doing that thing again. So I teach poise by demonstrating it and giving them a chance to practice in a low-stakes environment and learn what they do. Then, when it's time for the presentation, we kind of have a handle on it. What else? What else is out there? Other questions? Looking to see if hands are up or... Are we set? I see that some folks are probably headed up to another session.
I think so. Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, if not, let me do this. Let me thank you for your time. It's absolutely a pleasure to be able to do this and to have people from all over the world join in. It's now a pleasure for me to be able to say I have a book that can be accessed by people all over the world, because Digitally Speaking sits on the cloud. You don't have to have some publisher in your country put it in your bookstore. So that's exciting. And if you care to pursue it, I'm certainly happy to have you go to stenhouse.com and look at Digitally Speaking. But what I really hope is that you teach kids how to speak so that the power of your connections are much better. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Let me put up your site to the book so they can get to it. If you'll give me just a minute, I'll put that on.
Okay. It's preview. You can preview online and see how the interactive stuff works. A multimedia ebook. Peggy, can you say, it's really what Digitally Speaking is a multimedia book. It's a little different in that you don't download it to your iPad or your Kindle. It's something that stays on the cloud. So it's part flipped instruction, part blog, part book. It's a new thing that Stenhouse is doing. And so that would be fine if you check that out. I think that may answer your question. Someone wants to know if you could embed this presentation on your website. Absolutely. I want kids to speak well. I want teachers to teach kids to speak well while you are connecting, trying to get your project noticed. I want to get speaking skills noticed, so please, absolutely. I want to improve oral communication. That's really what it's about.
Can we embed it from the site, or is that something that we can get somewhere else, this presentation?
That's a good wrinkle. I don't know if you can embed it from here. I don't know about that. What I can do is I can put it on my website, pvlegs.com. I can put it there. Yeah, I'll put it at pvlegs.com. It should be up there within 24 hours, and then you can download it from there.
Okay, did I put that in there correctly?
I think you did.
Okay, great. Then that's where they can access the PowerPoint in a little bit. That'd be great.
I apologize. It looks like someone didn't, I didn't answer a question about shambles. I'm scanning back to the chat box to see what it was that I missed.
I missed that too.
But it's possible that I don't have an answer because I'm not familiar with the word. I don't know what shambles is. Is that another presentation site? If it is, thanks for sharing it. And I would love to include that the next time I do a presentation of tools that are available. Yep, scanning back, I don't see what I missed, but I don't know that I can help you with that in any event, but I'll look into it as soon as we're done.
There's a shambles guru. Maybe that's what they're talking about. It says, but you've decided to switch off your eye contact and gestures in this presentation. I don't think we could do that in this presentation because of the way that we had to load the presentations onto the site, to the GECI site. Do you see that in the chat there, Eric? It's at Shambles Guru at 11:20 a.m. was when that was posted. I wonder if that's what you're referring to, and I just think that was just because we can't embed any of that stuff into the PowerPoint presentation that goes on to this. It strips it of everything.
Oh, I see. And someone else about back channeling. Back channeling is an interesting idea, and I'm torn on that. You know, as teachers, we spend a whole lot of time trying to get kids to pay attention. And of course, back channeling seems like it is, by its nature, taking people away from paying attention. Because now I'm having a side conversation with somebody, and maybe it's on point, maybe not. As a presenter, certainly, can you pay attention to the back channel while you're presenting? It's tricky to do, as I've just demonstrated, because I missed some back channel comments. So it's a really interesting idea. Kids are multitaskers. It's easier for them, I think, than people in my generation, but I have mixed feelings on it. I'll let you make your own decisions about the back channel thing and whether you make that a part of what you do normally. Well, let me do this. I want you to get off to another presentation. I don't want to take someone else's time. I, again, appreciate everything that you have, all your attention here and all the comments. And again, I wish you a great day, and I wish you great success with your projects and with teaching kids to speak well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Eric. That was great. I'm going to hang on for a little while to make sure everybody gets checked and logged off. You're welcome to either stay or head off as you want to, but I'll just make sure everybody gets logged off of the session.
And you'll hit the off recording button, or do a...
I'm going to do that right now.
I appreciate the help, Barb.